The gleaming white corridors of the Interstellar Defense Academy stretched before Cadet Lena Reyes like veins of alabaster. Overhead, the soft blue lighting hummed with a tranquility that felt almost oppressive to her earthborn senses. Everything on Harmonio 4 was designed to be pleasant, optimized for comfort across 37 of the most common sentient species in the United Galactic Federation. For Reyes, it felt like walking through a museum where you weren't allowed to touch anything. Cadet Reyes, a voice called from behind. The sharp, clicking consonants identified the speaker before she turned around. Lieutenant Meccan, her Valerian instructor, approached with deliberate steps. His exoskeleton gleamed under the ambient light, polished to regulation perfection. Your combat aptitude scores have been processed. Yes, sir. Reyes straightened her posture, a reflex hammered into her by 6 months of academy training. The Valerian's compound eyes studied her, the multiple facets catching different angles of light. You broke 3 academy records: endurance, pain tolerance, and tactical adaptation under duress. Thank you, sir. It wasn't a compliment. The lieutenant's mandibles clicked in what Reyes had come to recognize as mild irritation. The simulations weren't designed with your kind in mind. Reyes had heard this before. Your kind. Deathworlders. Humans. The Federation classified Earth, Terra Incognita in official documentation, as a Class 12 Deathworld. A planet so fundamentally hostile to life that its native species had evolved extraordinary survival traits that made the rest of the galaxy nervous. I only perform to my capabilities, sir. Lieutenant Meccan's antennae twitched. That's what concerns the board. Your capabilities are difficult to predict. He paused, mandibles working silently before adding, You've been assigned to Echo Squad for the remainder of your training. Echo Squad. Reyes couldn't hide her surprise. Echo was known for taking the Academy's unique cases, species with unusual adaptations or circumstances. The decision wasn't unanimous, Meccan admitted. Some felt your presence might be disruptive. Others saw potential tactical advantages in having a Deathworlder's perspective. He handed her a datapad. Report to Hangar Bay 4 tomorrow at 0600. Your squad will be briefed on upcoming field training. With a final appraising look, the lieutenant turned and walked away, his chitin-plated form disappearing around a corner. Reyes exhaled slowly, studying the assignment notification. She had come to the Academy to prove that humans could be more than just the galaxy's bogeyman, that the traits that made her species survivors could make them valuable allies too. Now, she just had to convince Echo Squad of the same thing. The recreation hall buzzed with the sounds of dozens of species. To Reyes, it was a biological symphony. The flutter of wing casings, the soft hum of anti-grav supports for heavy gravity natives, the gentle slosh of aquatic adaptation suits. She scanned the room until she found the table marked with Echo Squad's insignia. 5 cadets sat around it, engaged in animated conversation. They fell silent as she approached. Cadet Reyes reporting as ordered, she said, standing at attention beside the table. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a tall, willowy figure with bioluminescent patches along its arms extended a 3-fingered hand. I'm Squad Leader Trill, the Lemurian said, his voice musical even in the Academy's translation frequencies. Welcome to Echo. The introductions continued around the table. Zen, a stocky Procyon with a perpetual half-smile and cybernetic enhancements visible at his temples. The twins Kai and Lam, Nexians with identical copper-toned scales and split pupils that widened as they studied her. Vix, a Thenian whose gelatinous form shifted constantly within her containment suit. And finally Drav, a hulking Ursid whose massive paws dwarfed the adaptive utensils he was using to eat. A human, Drav rumbled, not unkindly but with obvious caution. We've never had one in Echo before. Statistically improbable, agreed Zen, his cybernetic implants pulsing as he accessed data. Only 17 human graduates in the Academy's 93-year history. I heard your survival instinct makes you unpredictable, Kai, or possibly Lam, said, tongue flicking nervously. It's not unpredictability, Reyes corrected gently. It's adaptability. Is it true humans can regrow limbs? Asked Vix, her gelatinous form rippling with excitement. Reyes nearly choked on her nutrient drink. What? No, that's not. Vix, you're thinking of their cousin species, the salamandrians, Trill cut in. Humans are the persistence predators. The ones who used to hunt by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. The table fell silent again. Reyes felt the familiar weight of being viewed as something dangerous rather than someone too. No, she'd hoped to avoid this at the academy, but old perceptions died hard, even among species bred for intellectual pursuits. Our briefing is at 0600 tomorrow, she said, changing the subject. Any idea what we're preparing for? Trill's bioluminescent patches pulse softly. Word is it's a wilderness survival exercise. 3 days on XB7. The jungle moon? Reyes asked, remembering it from her planetary systems class. Level 3 environment, draft confirmed. Challenging, but manageable. We'll need to reach an extraction point 70 kilometers from drop location. Sounds straightforward enough, Reyes said, though she'd learned that in the Federation, straightforward often concealed layers of complexity. For us, perhaps, Zen said, his implants flickering. But I imagine for you, coming from a level 12 world, it might seem tame. There was again the veil of politeness barely concealing the uncertainty. Was she a liability because of her origins, or was she somehow cheating because her homeworld had forged her in harsher conditions than most species could comprehend? I'm here to learn and work as part of the team, Reyes said firmly. No more, no less. Trill nodded, his patches glowing with what Reyes hoped was approval. Then let's prepare like any other mission. Group study in my quarters, 1900 hours. We'll review XB7's ecosystem together. As the group dispersed, Reyes felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this assignment could work after all. Then she caught a whispered exchange between the Nexian twins as they slithered away. Did you see how she holds herself? Always ready to spring, like a predator pretending to be prey. Reyes sighed. It was going to be a long road to acceptance. The TAC shuttle hummed with barely contained power as it descended through XB7's dense atmosphere. Through the viewports, Reyes could see the moon's surface, a riot of purple vegetation broken by clearings of eerily perfect circularity. The sight triggered something primal in her instincts, a warning flag she couldn't quite place. Beautiful, isn't it? Trill said, sliding into the seat next to her. The botanical specimens alone make this moon significant. Some of the flora have evolved symbiotic relationships with the local fauna that. Those clearings aren't natural, Reyes interrupted, her eyes fixed on the pattern below. Trill followed her gaze. What do you mean? Look at the spacing. Too regular. And the edges are too clean. She traced the pattern with her finger against the viewport. On Earth, we call that territorial marking. Trill's luminescent patches flickered uncertainly. The briefing mentioned nothing about sentient species here. Not sentient, instinctive. Reyes kept her voice low, aware that the others were beginning to take notice of their conversation. Predators mark territory this way when they hunt in packs. From across the shuttle, Zen snorted. The Academy has been using XB7 for training exercises for decades. It's a level 3 environment. Challenging terrain, non-sentient wildlife, minimal hasard. Besides, added Kai, they wouldn't send cadets into an active predator zone. Of course not, Reyes conceded, though the unease remained. She'd grown up in the re-wilded zones of North America, where wolf packs and restored apex predators had reclaimed their ancient territories. She knew what hunting grounds looked like from above. The shuttle touched down in one of the circular clearings. Lieutenant Meckin stood from the pilot's seat and addressed the squad with clipped efficiency. Cadets, this is a standard wilderness survival exercise. Your objective is to reach the extraction point here. He highlighted a spot on their wrist-mounted navigation devices within 72 hours. You will be evaluated on teamwork, resource management, and adaptability. The wildlife is non-aggressive, if unprovoked. Any questions? Sir, Reyes began, those clearings are natural features of XB7 SCP-7's ecosystem. Meccan cut her off. I assure you the Academy has thoroughly vetted this training ground for cadet safety. The finality in his tone discouraged further inquiry. With a curt nod, he opened the shuttle hatch. A wave of humid air rushed in, carrying the rich scent of alien vegetation and the faint musk of something Reyes couldn't identify, but that raised the hairs on the back of her neck. Good luck, Echo Squad. Remember your training. With that, the lieutenant sealed the shuttle and took off, leaving the 6 cadets standing in the perfect circle of bare, violet earth. Well, Trill said, activating his navigation device. Extraction point is 68 kilometers northeast. We should cover at least 20 before nightfall. I suggest we move to the edge of this clearing first, Reyes said, scanning the tree line. Stay under cover as much as possible. Drav chuckled, a sound like stones grinding together. Afraid of getting a sunburn. Deathworlder. No, Reyes replied evenly. But something cleared this perfect circle, and I'd rather not be in the middle of it when that something comes back. The humor drained from Drav's Earth sign features. The rest of the squad exchanged nervous glances. The lieutenant just said the wildlife is non-aggressive, Vix pointed out, her containment suit rippling. He said if unprovoked, Reyes corrected. Standing in what might be a territorial marker could be seen as provocation by the local wildlife. Always with the predator instincts, muttered one of the Nexian twins. Lom, she thought, which have kept my species alive on a world that tried to kill us every day, Reyes countered, trying to keep the edge from her voice. Look, I'm not trying to challenge authority here. I'm just suggesting we apply some basic wilderness survival principles. Trill's patches pulsed thoughtfully before he nodded. It's a reasonable precaution. We'll proceed to the tree line and then follow the most direct route to the extraction point. The squad moved out, Trill taking point with Reyes just behind him. The purple foliage of XB-7 closed around them like a living curtain, dense and humid. Strange, bulbous plants leaked luminescent sap where they brushed against them. Small, insect-like creatures scattered at their approach. For hours they trekked through the alien jungle, the terrain growing increasingly difficult. Twice they had a detour around massive root systems that blocked their path. By mid-afternoon, they encountered another perfectly circular clearing, this one smaller than the landing zone. We should go around, Reyes suggested immediately. Zen consulted his navigation device. That would add 40 minutes to our journey time. The most efficient route is straight across. I'm with Zen, Draft said. We're burning daylight. Reyes felt a familiar frustration rising. How could she explain the warning signals firing in her brain, the instinctive reading of signs that her ancestors had honed over millennia of evolution? Fine, she conceded, but let's cross quickly and in single file. Minimize our time in the open. They crossed without incident, but Reyes noticed how the ambient sounds of the jungle, the clicks, whirs, and distant calls, fell silent as they entered the clearing. The silence persisted for several minutes after they re-entered the trees on the far side. By evening, they had covered 18 kilometers according to their devices. As the strange dual moons of XB-7 began to rise, Trill called a halt in a small depression surrounded by dense vegetation. We'll make camp here for the night, he announced. Zenkai, set up the thermal barriers. Lom, Vix, ration distribution. Drav, you're on first watch with me. Reyes, you'll take second watch with the twins. Reyes nodded and helped with the camp setup, but her attention kept drifting to the surrounding forest. There was something off about the ambient noise, patterns of silence that moved through the jungle around them. Twice she thought she caught glimpses of reflective eyes watching from the underbrush. As the others settled into sleep, she approached Trill, who was checking the perimeter. There's something out there, she said quietly. Following us. The Lemurian's patches dimmed to a concerned blue. Are you certain? Not visually, but she struggled to explain. On Earth, prey animals develop a sense for when they're being hunted. It's a feeling, Trill supplied, his tone skeptical. More like pattern recognition happening below conscious thought, Reyes explained. The silence moves with something. Listen. For a long moment, they stood motionless. At first, there was only the ambient noise of the jungle. Then a pocket of silence swept past their position, as if the local wildlife was holding its breath. Trill's patches flickered rapidly. I'll alert the others to maintain heightened awareness, but let's not cause unnecessary alarm. The Academy wouldn't send us into serious danger. Reyes wasn't so sure, but she nodded agreement. As she settled in for her rest period before watch duty, she positioned herself on the edge of the group, facing outward toward the darkened jungle. The dual moons cast strange, shifting shadows through the canopy. Something about this place felt like a test, one that the Academy briefing hadn't fully disclosed. She closed her eyes, but kept her senses alert, an old human trick of half-sleep that had served her ancestors well when predators prowled the night. The first scream tore through the darkness 3 hours later. Reyes was on her feet before fully awake, body tensed and ready. Around her, the camp erupted into chaos. Drav bellowed in confusion. The twins hissed in alarm. Vix's containment suit rippled violently as her gelatinous form contracted in fear. Status report, Trill shouted, his patches flaring bright enough to illuminate the clearing. Movement at the perimeter. Zin called back, his cybernetic implants glowing as he scanned the darkness. Multiple signatures circling our position. In the moonlight filtering through the canopy, Reyes caught glimpses of sleek, powerful forms moving with predatory grace. They were roughly the size of large wolves, but with 6 limbs instead of 4. Their skin seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them near invisible in the shadows. Kisrith pack hunters, Zen identified, accessing the data files they'd studied. But they're not supposed to be aggressive unless we're in their territory, Reyes finished grimly. Like I said, those clearings are territorial markers. The Academy records classified them as non-aggressive. Vix protested, her voice pitched high with fear. Seems the records need updating, Reyes replied, scanning for options. The creatures, Kisrith, were methodically tightening their circle. She counted at least 8 distinct forms. They moved with the coordinated precision that only evolved pack hunters possessed. Defensive formation, Trill ordered. Back to back. Activate emergency beacons. The squad complied, forming a tight circle with their backs together. Reyes found herself between Drav and one of the twins. She could feel Drav's massive form trembling slightly. We need to reach higher ground, she suggested urgently. Find a defensible position. There's no time, Trill replied. They've cut us off from all sides. The Kisrith began making low, rumbling sounds that reverberated through the clearing. It wasn't quite a growl, more like the purr of an enormous cat, undercut with something that made Reyes's blood run cold. They were communicating, coordinating their approach. This is what they do, she realized aloud. They herd prey into a designated killing zone, then close in. We are not prey, Drav growled, though his voice lacked conviction. Reyes looked around at her squad mates. None of them were evolved for this kind of threat. Lemurian, Procyon, Nexian, Fenian, Ursid, all from worlds where intelligence had evolved past the need for pure survival instinct. Even Drav, despite his intimidating size, came from a planet where his species had been the dominant predator for so long that their aggressive instincts had been culturally suppressed. But humans? Humans were different. Earth had never stopped trying to kill its dominant species. And in response, humans had never stopped developing ways to survive. I have an idea, Reyes said suddenly. But you need to trust me. What are you going to do? Trill asked, his patches pulsing anxiously. Something very human. Reyes stepped forward, breaking the defensive circle. Reyes, several voices hissed in unison. She ignored them. The Kisrith immediately focused on her, their rumbling growing louder. The largest one, clearly the pack leader, took 2 steps forward, its 6 limbs moving with liquid grace. In the moonlight, Reyes could now make out rows of serrated teeth as its mouth parted in a silent snarl. What happened next would later be described in half a dozen different ways in the official Academy reports. The Nexian twins would claim that Reyes transformed into something primal. Zen's recording implants would capture what his report would clinically term evolutionary regression to apex predator behavior patterns. Vix would simply state, "She became a monster they always said humans were." Reyes planted her feet firmly on the ground, squared her shoulders, and did what millions of years of evolution had programmed into her DNA when faced with a threat to her tribe. She roared. It wasn't the controlled battle cry taught in academy combat classes. This was something deeper, more visceral, a sound that reached back through human history to the savannah, to the caves, to the times when humans had faced down predators with nothing but determination and the will to survive. The sound echoed through the clearing, momentarily silencing even the ambient noises of the jungle. Reyes didn't stop there. She advanced toward the pack leader, her body language transformed. Gone was the disciplined cadet. In her place stood a creature that had evolved on a world where everything, even the microbes, could kill you. "Don't come any closer," she bellowed, her voice dropping to a guttural register that her squad mates had never heard before. She bared her teeth, spread her arms to make herself appear larger, and locked eyes with the lead Kisrith in a direct challenge. Behind her, she could hear the shocked silence of Echo Squad. In front of her, the Kisrith pack leader hesitated, its predatory advance faltering for the first time. Reyes took another deliberate step forward, then another. Her heart hammered in her chest, adrenaline flooding her system, sharpening her senses to razor precision. She was afraid. Of course she was afraid. But millions of years of evolution had taught humans to use fear as fuel. "This is our territory now," she growled, never breaking eye contact with the pack leader. "You want to fight? I'll give you a fight. But I promise, you'll lose more than you gain." The pack leader tilted its head, reassessing. Something in Reyes's display had triggered recognition. Predator recognizing predator. For several tense heartbeats, neither moved. The rest of the pack stayed frozen, waiting for their leader's decision. Then, with a sound that wasn't quite a whimper, but definitely wasn't a growl, the pack leader took a step back. Then another. Its posture shifted from aggression to caution. Reyes pressed her advantage, taking another step forward, still maintaining the aggressive posture. "That's right. Go!" To the astonishment of Echo Squad, the entire Kisrith pack began to retreat, not in panic, but with the deliberate caution of predators that had decided this particular prey wasn't worth the risk. Within moments, they had melted back into the jungle, though Reyes could still feel their presence lingering at the edges of her awareness. Only when she was certain they were at a safe distance did she allow her posture to relax. She turned back to her squad mates, suddenly aware of how she must have appeared to them. 6 pairs of eyes stared at her in stunned silence. "What was that?" Trill finally managed. Reyes took a deep breath, willing her heart rate to slow. "That was a human being a human." "You scared them away," Vix marveled, her gelatinous form rippling with excitement. "An entire pack of apex predators." "Technically, I convinced them we weren't worth the effort," Reyes corrected. "Predators are pragmatic. They don't want injuries. If potential prey looks like it might cost them more than they'd gain, they'll usually back off." "But how did you know what to do?" Kai asked, still wide-eyed. "I didn't. Not really," Reyes admitted. "I just knew. The same way you instinctively know how to regulate your body temperature or how Zen processes information. Some things are just written into our biology." Drav regarded her with newfound respect. "Deathworld instincts." "Yeah," she said with a slight smile. "Deathworld instincts." Trill's patches had shifted to a thoughtful purple. "We should relocate immediately. Find a more defensible position for the remainder of the night." "Agreed," Reyes said. "And tomorrow we should stick to the dense vegetation, avoid the clearings completely. They're definitely territorial markers." For the first time since joining Echo Squad, no one questioned her assessment. As they gathered their equipment and moved deeper into the jungle, Reyes noticed the subtle shift in how they positioned themselves, with her not at the edges of the group but near the center. Not isolated but protected, and when they found a suitable location to wait out the night, it was Trill who suggested that Reyes take point on the watch rotation. "Your senses seem better adapted for this environment," he said simply. She nodded, recognizing the gesture for what it was: acceptance. As the others settled in to catch what rest they could, Reyes took up her position, alert to the sounds of the jungle. The Kisrith were still out there. She could feel their presence, but they were maintaining their distance now, watching with newfound wariness. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she felt not shame, but pride in her Deathworld heritage. What had seemed like a burden among the civilized species of the Federation had proven to be an asset when civilization's protections fell away. She was exactly what evolution had designed her to be: a survivor. The next 2 days passed with surprising efficiency. Echo Squad moved through the jungle like a well-oiled machine, each member contributing their unique skills to the collective effort. Trill's natural leadership and knowledge of xenobotany helped them identify safe water sources. Zen's cybernetic enhancements provided constant environmental analysis. The Nexian twins scouted ahead using their heat-sensing abilities, while Vix's adaptable physiology allowed her to test potential food sources. Drav's raw strength cleared obstacles in their path. And Reyes? Reyes became their early warning system, her honed instincts detecting danger long before it materialized. Twice more they encountered Kisrith packs at a distance, but each time Reyes guided the squad through alternative routes, avoiding confrontation. "It's remarkable," Zen commented as they crossed a shallow stream on the third day. "Your threat detection appears to operate on a subconscious level. You perceive patterns the rest of us miss entirely. Just how it works on a death world," Reyes replied with a shrug. "You either develop those instincts or you don't survive. I'm beginning to understand why the Federation has such strict protocols regarding class. 12 worlds," Trill said thoughtfully. "Not out of fear, as I'd always assumed, but out of respect." "A little of both, probably," Reyes admitted. "We tend to break things when we're scared or angry, including each other. Yet here you are," Drav rumbled, helping Vix navigate a particularly slippery section of the bank, "trying to find your place among the stars." "Humans have always looked up," Reyes said with a smile. "Even when everything around us was trying to kill us, we never stopped wondering what was beyond the next horizon." They reached the extraction point 12 hours ahead of schedule. The clearing, another of those perfect circles that Reyes now recognized as Kisrith territory markers, buzzed with activity as Academy personnel set up the retrieval shuttle. Lieutenant Meccan stood at the perimeter, chrono in hand, expression inscrutable behind his Valerian features. "Echo Squad reporting for extraction, sir," Trill announced, his patches glowing with quiet pride. 12 hours early," Meccan noted, his compound eyes shifting to take in each cadet in turn. When they reached Reyes, they lingered, and all members present and accounted for. "Impressive. We encountered several challenges, sir," Trill reported formally, including multiple Kisrith pack hunter encounters. "That got a reaction." Meccan's antennae twitched sharply. "Kisrith?" The wildlife assessment indicated they were solitary creatures, not pack hunters, and certainly not aggressive. "The assessment was incorrect, sir," Reyes said. "They hunt in coordinated packs of 8 to 10 individuals and mark territory with the circular clearings we observed throughout the region." "I see." The lieutenant's mandibles clicked in what might have been concern. "And how did you manage these encounters?" The squad exchanged glances before Zen stepped forward. "Cadet Reyes identified the threat and implemented effective countermeasures, sir." "Countermeasures?" Meccan echoed. "She demonstrated Deathworlder territorial display behaviors." Zen continued with scientific precision. "The Kisrith recognized her as an apex predator and withdrew." Lieutenant Meccan's compound eyes swiveled back to Reyes. "Is this accurate, Cadet?" "Yes, sir," she answered. "I utilized intimidation techniques that would be instinctive to any human in a survival situation." "I see," Meccan said again, but this time his tone had shifted. "Board the shuttle. We'll debrief fully once we return to the academy." As they filed past him, the lieutenant stopped Reyes with a light touch on her shoulder. "The academy intentionally upgraded the difficulty level of this exercise," he said quietly. "We needed to evaluate how a mixed-species team would perform with a Deathworlder under genuine stress conditions." Reyes blinked in surprise. You knew about the Kisrith? We knew there were predators, Meccan clarified. We didn't know they were organized pack hunters. That data will be updated in our records. His mandibles shifted in what Reyes had learned was the Valerian equivalent of a rueful smile. It seems our assessment protocols have room for improvement. So this was all a test? She asked, keeping her voice low. Training is always a test, Cadet, Meccan replied. In this case, one that your squad passed with exceptional results. He hesitated before adding, and one that has provided valuable data on the tactical applications of Deathworlder instincts. Reyes wasn't sure how to feel about that. On one hand, she'd proven her worth to both her squad and the academy. On the other, she'd been an experimental variable as much as a cadet. Permission to speak freely, sir. Granted, if you want to understand humans better, you could just ask. We're pretty straightforward when given the chance. Meccan's antennae twitched in what might have been amusement. Duly noted, Cadet Reyes. Board the shuttle. I believe your squad mates are waiting. Indeed they were. As she climbed the ramp, she found Echo Squad had saved her a seat in their midst. Not at the edge of the group, but in the center. Trill's patches glowed a warm welcome. The twins made space between them. Zen nodded in acknowledgement. Vix rippled her containment suit in greeting, and Drav's massive paw clapped her shoulder as she sat down. Not bad for a Deathworlder. The Ursid rumbled with newfound respect. Not bad for any of us, Reyes corrected with a smile. As the shuttle lifted off, leaving XB7 and its predators behind, Reyes looked around at her squad mates, so different from her in biology and background, yet now connected by shared experience. They had seen her at her most primal, most human, and instead of fear, they had found value in that difference. It wasn't universal acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. The shuttle banked toward the stars, carrying them back to the academy. Somewhere in that vast, glittering expanse was Earth, the death world that had forged humanity through millions of years of relentless challenge. Once, Reyes had been almost ashamed of that heritage. Now, she understood it differently, not as a liability to be overcome, but as a strength to be channeled. She was a Deathworlder, and sometimes that was exactly what the universe needed. The news of Echo Squad's encounter with the Kisrith pack hunters spread through the Interstellar Defense Academy like wildfire. By the time they reached the mess hall the morning after their return, Reyes found herself the subject of curious stares and whispered conversations. Is it true you scared off an entire pack of predators just by shouting at them? A wide-eyed Arctuvian cadet asked as Reyes collected her nutrient tray. Not exactly, she began, but Drav's massive arm wrapped around her shoulders. Better than that, the Ursid announced proudly. She spoke their language, predator to predator. The story grew with each retelling. By midday, half the academy seemed convinced that Reyes had transformed into some mythical earth beast. The other half believed she had engaged in ritual combat with the Kisrith Alpha. Neither was true, but Reyes found the mythology oddly comforting. Perhaps this was how bridges were built, through stories that transformed fear into fascination. In the command offices, Lieutenant Meccan filed his official report, carefully detailing Echo Squad's performance and Reyes's unexpected contribution to their survival. The Valerian paused, mandibles working thoughtfully, before adding a final recommendation. Cadet Reyes has demonstrated that Deathworlder instincts, properly channeled, represent a valuable tactical asset to Federation defense forces. I recommend expansion of the human recruitment, initiative, and development of specialized training protocols to integrate their unique capabilities into multi-species units. He submitted the report, knowing it would raise eyebrows among the Academy board. Change came slowly to the Federation, but it did come. And perhaps understanding humans better was a change whose time had arrived. In the weeks that followed, Echo Squad's training took on a new dimension. Rather than trying to suppress Reyes's human instincts, Trill began actively incorporating them into their tactical exercises. When faced with a challenge, they would assess it both from traditional Federation protocols and from what Zen had taken to calling the Deathworld perspective. It's about complementary approaches, Trill explained during one briefing. Federation tactics excel at order, efficiency, and technological solutions. Deathworld instincts provide adaptability, threat assessment, and unconventional thinking. Basically, Drav added with his rumbling chuckle, we plan for everything going right, and Reyes plans for everything going wrong. That's actually pretty accurate, Reyes admitted, drawing laughter from the squad. Their integration became so successful that other training units began to take notice. Instructors from specialized courses requested Echo Squad for demonstration exercises. Senior cadets sought them out for tactical consultations. Even Lieutenant Meccan, usually reserved to the point of coldness, showed a new interest in their development. The Federation has always valued diversity, he told them during an advanced tactical seminar. But perhaps we've been overlooking certain kinds of diversity. Evolution follows different paths on different worlds. What seems alien or even frightening may simply be another form of adaptation. His compound eyes had fixed on Reyes momentarily before continuing. Even the most challenging environments produce valuable traits, perhaps especially those environments. For Reyes, these developments represented everything she had hoped to achieve at the Academy. She had come to prove that humans could be more than just the galaxy's bogeyman, that the traits forged on a death world could serve the greater good of a peaceful federation. One evening, as Echo Squad gathered in the recreation hall, Trill raised his drinking vessel in a toast. His bioluminescent patches glowed with a warm, golden light that Reyes had come to recognize as genuine affection. To Echo Squad, the Lemurian announced, and to the remarkable discovery that when predators meet a Deathworlder, they're the ones who turn and flee. The squad laughed and clinked their various drinking vessels together. Reyes felt a warmth that went beyond the camaraderie of teammates. These weren't just colleagues anymore. They were friends who had seen her at her most primal and accepted her anyway. Later that night, as Reyes prepared for bed in her quarters, her communication device chimed with an incoming message. It was from Lieutenant Meccan, containing her updated performance evaluation and a personal note. Cadet Reyes, your actions on XB7 have resulted in a formal recommendation to revise Federation protocols regarding human integration into mixed-species units. Your file notation has been changed from potential security concern, Deathworld origins to tactical asset, Deathworld adaptations. The Academy Board will be reviewing similar classifications across all human cadets. Well done. Reyes smiled as she set the device down. One small change in classification, one giant leap for human Federation relations. In the weeks that followed, 3 more human cadets were admitted to the Academy, the largest single-term admission of Deathworlders in its history. When they arrived, uncertain and braced for the isolation Reyes had initially experienced, they instead found an academy subtly transformed. Instructors who had once regarded humans with suspicion now approached them with professional curiosity. Fellow cadets who might have kept their distance now sought them out for training partnerships. And waiting to greet them was Cadet Lena Reyes, no longer the Academy's lone Deathworlder, but the trailblazer who had shown the Federation that what made humans different also made them valuable. The first thing you need to understand, she told the new arrivals as she guided them through the gleaming corridors, is that you're not here despite being human. You're here because you're human. But I thought the Federation considered Earth a danger zone, one of the new cadets said. They do, Reyes confirmed. But they're starting to understand that's not the whole story. She smiled as they passed a group of cadets who nodded respectfully in their direction. A Deathworld forges qualities you can't develop anywhere else. Resilience, adaptability, the ability to face the unknown and find a way through. And they want those qualities now, another newcomer asked skeptically. They're beginning to, Reyes said. The galaxy is bigger and more dangerous than anyone expected. The Federation needs every evolutionary advantage it can get. She paused as they reached the junction leading to the new cadets' quarters, including ours. That night, Reyes stood at the viewport in her quarters, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the crucible that had forged humanity through countless challenges and hardships. Once, she had almost been ashamed of that heritage. Now she understood it differently. She was a Deathworlder, and the universe needed Deathworlders more than it knew. In the command center of the Academy, Lieutenant Meccan reviewed the latest updates from the Federation Science Council. Reports were coming in from the outer systems of new threats, species even more predatory than the Kisrith, evolving in environments that made XB7 look like a garden paradise. The Federation's carefully maintained peace would soon face challenges it had never anticipated. The lieutenant's gaze shifted to the latest cadet performance metrics displayed on his console. Echo Squad scores had reached unprecedented levels, with their integrated approach setting new benchmarks across multiple disciplines. And at the heart of that success was the human cadet who had transformed from an integration challenge to a tactical asset. Computer, Meccan instructed, flag Echo Squad for Advanced Deployment Readiness Assessment. Priority designation, Frontier Response Unit. As the system acknowledged his command, the Valerian allowed himself a moment of reflection. Perhaps the galaxy needed Deathworlders after all, and perhaps the Deathworlders, with their strange mix of primal instinct and higher reasoning, needed the galaxy just as much. It was, he decided, a promising symbiosis. Across the Academy, in countless small ways, perceptions were shifting. Casual conversations in the mess hall now included discussions of Earth's evolutionary history. Training simulations incorporated scenarios that tested Deathworlder instinct alongside traditional tactics. Even the Academy's xenobiology curriculum was being revised to place greater emphasis on the adaptive advantages of high-challenge environments. For Reyes, these changes represented everything she had hoped to achieve. She had come to the Academy to prove that humans could be more than just frightening anomalies from a dangerous world, that the traits that made them survivors could make them valuable allies too. As she joined Echo Squad for their morning briefing, she realized that some transformations happen not through grand gestures or formal declarations, but through small moments of trust built day by day. A Lemurian commander willing to listen to a human's instincts. A Nexian twin pair learning to appreciate rather than fear human unpredictability. An Ursid warrior finding common ground with an Earth predator. New assignment, Trill announced, his patches glowing with excitement. We're being deployed to the Arcturus sector for an extended training rotation. Apparently, the frontier outposts have requested Echo Squad specifically. Because of our performance metrics? Zen asked, his cybernetic implants pulsing as he accessed the mission data. Partially, Trill replied, his gaze shifting to Reyes. But the request specifically mentions our innovative integration of Deathworlder tactical adaptations. He smiled, an expression his species had adopted from human cultural exchange. It seems your reputation precedes you, Reyes. She shook her head, embarrassed but pleased. It's not about me. It's about what we discovered together on XB7. That our differences make us stronger when we learn to value them instead of fear them. Well said, rumbled Drav, clapping her on the shoulder with enough force to stagger a lesser being. Though I think she was just a cadet from a death world. Until the Predator pack turned and fled, makes for a better story. The squad laughed, and Reyes joined them, accepting both the joke and the underlying truth it contained. She had entered the Academy carrying the weight of her world's reputation. Dangerous, unpredictable, frightening. She would graduate carrying something else. The knowledge that those same qualities, properly understood and directed, could transform fear into respect, isolation into belonging, and ancient survival instincts into a shield for all sentient life. She was a Deathworlder, and she wouldn't have it any other way.